Hey everyone, my name is Mitya. I'm co-founder of Draw Protocol, backed by Lido, and today we're gonna be sharing our thoughts about why we think that the future is liquid. And we're gonna talk about three things: current state of the liquidity in the interchain, how we can work with the incentives of everyone involved in the ecosystem to unlock the liquidity, and then once we unlock it, how to keep it flowing. So let's do it. Start with the current state. Interchain is great. It's been growing immensely recently. We've been seeing really cool projects joining the ecosystem recently. There was DYDX, Celestia launches, Initia is launching soon. This is amazing, and we still have the rate of the innovation, which is higher than anywhere else. All the recent coolest trends were actually started in Interchain. Restaking was started here. Account abstraction is working here, and no one knows that it's working here, but it's absolutely amazing. Appchain thesis was the original thesis coming from Cosmos ecosystem. Now everyone is talking about appchains. So yeah, Interchain is great. But we have a small problem. Billions and billions of liquidity are locked and unusable because of how native staking works. And to be honest, we're just shooting ourselves in the foot. If you look at this chart, it compares staking to native stake, liquid staking to native staking markets. So basically, in the largest economies and in the chain, in Atom, in Cosmos Hub, in Celestia, most of the assets, or vast majority of assets, are locked in liquid staking. They cannot be used anywhere. If you look at Ethereum, this is what a more kind of healthy ecosystem looks like. 40% liquid staking penetration. So all these assets are doing some productive work elsewhere. So the question is, why? And why is because the native staking in Cosmos works this way. Staking APRs are really high. Inflation is also high. That means that it's a almost an optimal strategy for everyone just to do native staking. And that means that the liquidity is locked. More than 50% of assets in all the chains are locked. To unbond the tokens, you have to wait for 21 days. So no one is really incentivized to do this. And the result is stagnation. And we've seen many applications that basically were starving with liquidity, or many app chains that were starving with liquidity. Some of them are died now. Some of them are not in the best state. So how do we go about it? How do we fix that? And we should think of it in terms of incentives, and we should think of it in terms of first principles. So let's first imagine where we want to go, and look at the ecosystem that would be in a better state. So what kind of economy do we want to build? And the economies are not built on top of static, unproductive assets. Economies are built on top of abundant liquidity, on top of reinforcing aligned incentives, and to do so, we need to build flywheel effects to support those economies. And yeah, let's talk about how we build those flywheels. There could be multiple types of flywheels. There could be a restaking flywheel. There could be a roll-up flywheel. But the most straightforward type of a flywheel is a DeFi flywheel. That's the one that was supporting the elastic growth in Ethereum. And the way it works is that you start with the liquidity in the LSTs. Once you have a lot of LST liquidity, you can deploy it to the DEXs. Once you have high DEX liquidity, that means that your assets are actually liquid. You could exchange them. You could use them to support other use cases. And most importantly, this would be high yield strategies that rely on the DEXs for many things, including liquidations, for instance. So high DEX liquidity absolutely critical for that. But these high yield use cases create appeal for the LSTs in the first place. So this is how it's reinforcing itself once again and again. Once you have very appealing high yield strategies, for instance, in Ethereum that was leverage looping, now the LSTs become more appealing. People are happy to use them. There are more of them. They deploy them to the DEXs, and the circle repeats itself. So this is a type of a flywheel that does not really work well right now, and that should be created. And this is type of a flow that really supports the flywheel. But once the flywheel is created, it should keep going somehow. And if you have a lot of friction to the flywheel, then that's a problem. And now let's talk about how we keep this liquidity flowing. In a drop, our theory is that basically it's all about incentives. You have to uh, give the applications that are using liquidity the right incentives, and they should be willing to integrate into very neat use cases around the LSTs. And the way we build Drop is we're using integrated apps architecture on Neutron that allows us to integrate with the other DeFi projects on the chain, as well as on the underlying architecture levels. So let's see how it allows us to reduce friction. So one example is how you enter the high leverage strategy. So this one would be about creating leverage on a liquid staked asset. And the way it normally works now is that, okay, you have a D atom at the start. You need to borrow more atom to stake it, then to create more higher D atom position, create more yield, and that's your leverage position. And when it's automated, it's normally using a DEX. So there would be a swap in the background, and this is basically a source of a loss in the process. Could be a few percent loss depending on the efficiency of the DEX at the point, which is quite unpredictable as well. So once you have those two applications working on the same chain, you can integrate them neatly and replace the DEX swap with the actual staking contract of Drop. That means that now you eliminated all the loss in the process. You created leverage position with no loss. You can start making money immediately. And that's the idea, as opposed to the situation where you were starting from a 2% down, you're starting with a zero and then building on top of that. So that's one source of friction eliminated. Now let's look at once you're in the position, what happens then? So there are different types of staking yields. Some of them are distributed to native tokens, super straightforward. You can auto compound them, you're building more yield. What if it's distributed in a different type of an asset? So for instance, let's look at DYDX. So DYDX is quite unique in this regard because DYDX distributed rewards in USDC. So if you want to auto compound the yield, and you have to go through the swaps every time. So it's critical to use a swap mechanism that would be super efficient, and every time you do auto compounding, this will basically get you a high yield. So because we're building on an integrated app application, we go into deeper level of the chains. We can use duality, DEX, and Neutron, which is going to be launched soon, and basically eliminate all the loss that is happening on the slippage step here. So compound more, get more yield. That's a more appealing strategy that now you use. And now let's look at the third example. So now you want to exit your position. And there are two ways to exit a position which is built on LST tokens. First, you can swap the tokens on a DEX. Sometimes it could be not the best way just because of, for instance, where the peg is or losses in the DEX. So the alternative option would be to wait for 21 days, which is suboptimal because you probably want to do something else with the assets. So what we can do with that, again, using some of the other applications of the chain, we could replace this step with borrowing. So you basically borrow this asset for 21 days, give it to user immediately. Now you exited the position immediately as well, and then you can use this asset elsewhere in a more productive way if you want to. So that's a third step to eliminating friction. And if you combine them all, you basically started with very easily entering the position, then building high yield when you hold it, and then exiting it easily as well. And that's how the flywheel is keeps going and going and doesn't stop barely because of the rusty bearings in it. And at the end, this is the vision that we're building with Drop, that it's a world with abundant liquidity, with flywheels, low friction, and yeah, that's the future that we invite you to build together, and the future is liquid. That's it. That was quick though. We can do Q&A if you will. Spade. Well, it's a different architecture, right? So there are a few ways how you can build an LST. You can build an LST as an app chain. You can build an LST as an integrated app. And yeah, it was all about what you're getting if you're building it as an integrated app. So our thesis is that LSTs are as useful as the use cases that you build around them. And the way to build better use cases is to get better integrated with the partners that you're working with. So yeah, this is why integrated apps are are cool because you're not like an isolated application anymore. You can work with your partners very closely, optimize towards certain user experiences, and this is why you can make your LSTs more appealing. That's it. Yep. Oh, actual user in the room. Ah. That's our hero. Yeah. Yeah, sure. You can think of it as a kind of two, two, maybe two types of like integration. So with the DeFi protocols that are co-hosted in Neutron, that could be kind of more native integration. But there are super cool applications that are built outside of Neutron as well in Ethereum, including Ethereum and other chains. So maybe they're building app chains. And yeah, these are totally viable use cases as well. And so if you think about it, so if you're using some of the kind of DeFi primitives that and you're satisfied with the products on Neutron, which are getting better and better every day, then that's a straightforward solution for you to use them. And then if people are building an app chain for their DeFi product, there's probably some very strong justification for it, meaning that there is a differentiated experience. So you could use steal some of the DeFi primitives from Neutron and then participate in the products that are built on the other chains. But yeah, from what we see, even on the Ethereum chain, these assets are pretty appealing, to be honest, because the higher native yield is actually pretty cool for someone who's dealing with Ethereum, which is like 3% native yield. We're kind of happy to have 10, 14, which is like as I started, could be a bit of a problem, to be honest. But for Ethereum users, it's a high native yield. That's pretty cool. If you do something like delta neutral with this yield, yeah, why not? So yeah, it's going to be all over, starting with some of the things on Neutron and outside of Neutron, and then going everywhere. Drop names. Yeah, so for starters, yeah, it's going to be Neutron, OGs, Mars, S support, Apollo. There's going to be a new thing built on Neutron for Pendle-like use cases. Have they announced it? Actually, yeah, okay. Fission announced, so not an alpha, still pretty cool project. What else? Levana is going to be using this as well with some kind of new cases that they didn't do before. So that's going to be awesome. And outside of Neutron, yeah, there's going to be quite a few as well. There's going to be Nolos. Nolos are doing the leasing thing, which is pretty unique and cool. There's going to be one more similar to Fission that you might know. And yeah, outside of Cosmos, we'll not say yet. We're working on it, but yeah, to be announced soon.